Right, so welcome back to IT Trades, and sad to say that this week has been a roller coaster of war things, of oil prices surging, and just overall chaos. Now, guys, this is not financial advice. Trading leverage instruments like this is risky, so please be responsible, protect your capital at all costs, and this does not once again constitute financial advice. I'm not saying that these trades will work for you. I am simply documenting from my perspective, as I am the average trader who is trying to make something from this, just like you. Alright, first of all, let's hop into our trades of the week. Now, I didn't trade much this week. Admittedly, I've had other responsibilities as well. Work's been keeping me busy, but we've managed to catch two decent trades this week. I'm also going to show you a setup that I kind of liked, but that failed at the end of the day. Now, my biggest winner this week by far was oil. Now, of course, with the Middle East situation and the Strait of Hormuz basically being shut down, it's given us an opportunity to see this massive spike in oil. If you go to the daily time frame, you can see how crazy this just is now. Yesterday alone, oil was up 15%, which is absolutely unseen before. Now, I took two oil trades yesterday. Now, this was the first one. So let me run through this on the hourly chart so you can see better, right? So as we can see, we've been making our higher highs, right? Higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Failed to break this resistance at first, but eventually did break through it. So we've been creating this stable uptrend right here. The first opportunity I kind of actually missed. When right on market open, we kind of saw this immense spike, which we expected on market open. We quickly filled that imbalance and we spiked up. Now, unfortunately, this would have been an ideal opportunity. However, this was 1 o'clock in the morning for me, so it is what it is, right? Now, if we look towards this resistance here, you can see that price eventually did break through this resistance. We had the previous wick here, as you can see. Retested the resistance, grabbed liquidity, made it up to this resistance, got rejected at first, and this is where my entry point was. When it retested the resistance, now turned support obviously, for a second time and got rejected for a second time, this is when I took the opportunity to take a long position on oil. This was around 74.28 was my entry. If we drop down to the 50-minute, we can see why we entered here. Now, initially, this was a false breakout to the downside. We grabbed some liquidity, or at least sell side liquidity. We moved up, right? We retested again. We got some nice bottom wicks here. We got this. Where is this now? We got, as we can see, we got this structure shift eventually here. So my entry was a bit early. However, it did work out for a 1:2.5 ratio, right? Now, as you can see, this is the 50-day moving average, and we've been kind of really respecting this 50-day moving average very nicely. As you can see, this liquidity grab was just under the 50 EMA, and price moved up. When it came back the second time with my entry, it respected the 50, it respected the previous support levels. Those were already two confluences on my end, and I entered the trade. Now, this was a bit of a risky one, I'm not gonna lie. So this was yesterday, actually Friday, and I anticipated this happening. We broke through this resistance, right? We initially had a good retracement, a nice solid retracement into this previous resistance area, now turned support. We saw a little bit of a move now. I initially thought this was going to fade and head back down because of the size of the candles here. We can see that these candles were not very big, and it didn't look like a lot of volume in there. But my way of thinking was the conflict was escalating, and if we drop down to a lower time frame on the 50-minute, we can see that once we reach this resistance level we had actually previously rejected, right? So we rejected from here. We saw this candle, and what this candle was telling me is that we kind of saw a lot of volume heading into this resistance, which usually from what I've seen leads to a break of structure. So I did initially wanted to enter here, however I didn't. I wanted to see a clean break. I wanted to see a cleaner break and a retest. That retest unfortunately never happened, and price continued up. Now, if I started dropping down on the lower time frames, as you can see here. Price retested this, headed back up, broke this resistance on the 50 minutes, retested, wicked, and this is where I ended my trade. Was this a risky trade? Absolutely. Was this a trade I'd normally take? Absolutely not. However, my way of thinking was that the escalating conflict and the Strait of Hormuz being closed, well, not closed, but temporarily the traffic is being halted, that just made me think that obviously the big players are going to get into oil before the weekend, because anything can happen over the weekend. And my way of thinking was that the volume that we saw here going into this resistance was going to break it eventually. Now, as soon as we broke through this structure, started creating higher highs and higher lows again, this is when I took my chance. I had a very tight stop loss, as you can see, in case price just went back down. Price also respected the 50 EMA very nicely, and this was my best trade of the week for a 1:7R ratio. Absolutely crazy trade here, by far the best. Now, judging by how we look currently, I think this is overextended, and I think that we could see a pullback back into this area of support at around 81 or 80, and then we could continue up, depending, of course, on how the geopolitical situation unfolds. My second trade was on gold. Now, I absolutely hated gold this week. I think it was choppy, it was all over the place. I really didn't even take a trade on it. As you can see, I did eye a few moves here, especially with this falling wedge here, which eventually did run my way, even though I didn't take the trade. This was yesterday, right? Yesterday, we pretty much saw a consolidation, mostly of a consolidation here between these two levels. And yesterday, we got the NFP report. I was long before the NFP report dropped, and I went long because of this reason. So we initially, in the early hours of Friday, we had this initial push in Asia session, right? We created imbalance, we filled that imbalance all the way down to here. We got a nice wick here, right? We got a retest into that area of liquidity, and we saw a nice move starting here. At this moment, I went long. And truth be told, I actually forgot that it was Friday and that NFP was dropping. But luckily, NFP, this spike here did go my way. So this trade, I would say, was kind of lucky. This trade, I was already long before NFP, and NFP just helped me on. So this was a nice 1:2.25 risk to reward ratio. I could have gone long again here because price filled this imbalance and then, went up even further. So I could have taken a second entry here, but unfortunately I didn't. And those are my two trades, guys. So yeah, not the best week, not the most active trading week, but nonetheless, we appreciate the profits that we get out of the markets, and we're just normal people trying to build something serious from this. So if you want to join in on the journey of the average trader, just like you are, consider subscribing to ITN Trades. I show you my setups every single week. I show you my lost trades also every single week. So these were the only two trades that I took, and luckily both of them were winners. Yeah, guys, it doesn't go like this every week, trust me. Sometimes the risk that I take, this is not a trade that I normally would have taken on oil, but I just saw the momentum and I went with the momentum. So guys, yeah, if you are interested in more authentic content like this, when it comes to trading, when it comes to financial markets, please make sure that you subscribe to ITN Trades. Remember that this is not financial advice, and please be wise with your capital. See you next time.